Wow, there's a lot of you. So, there is a billionaire who lives in Brazil, and he's famous for being overly eccentric. He's left his entire fortune to his pet cockatoo. He owns a very expensive Bentley that's worth over £500,000. And he posted on social media that he decided, in all his wisdom, that he wanted to bury this Bentley so he could ride around in the afterlife in style. There was outrage. People were like, why on earth would you bury something so precious and so valuable? All would be revealed at a press conference. So there he is. So there he is, stood in front of the world's press and says, all of you here are outraged at the fact that I am burying this car. But every day, we bury things more valuable than this. Every day, we are burying organs, hearts, livers, lungs, all that could keep families and loved ones together. No one seems outraged when we do this, but we are when we bury our car. This ended up being the start of the Brazilian National Organ Donation Awareness Week, and true to his word, Count Scarpa buried his Bentley. I am a neonatal intensive care sister, and I have the absolute privilege of looking after some of the tiniest, most resilient, medically defying humans there are. They are incredible. They are the most resilient patients I've ever looked after. 1 in 5 neonatal deaths could have potentially have been an organ donor. But it's still really rare to happen in the UK. Now, these organs from these babies don't just go to other small children or babies. We now have the expertise in this country to take kidneys from a neonate and do an en bloc kidney transplant into an adult. But we're not doing it. So I want to talk to you about my personal experience of neonatal organ donation with one particular family. This story is about overriding hierarchies, pushing boundaries, and most excitingly, making the unheard of a reality. So still to this day, this case is the hardest one I've ever worked on. A baby born at term, unfortunately, became severely deprived of oxygen when his mum, Laura, collapsed at home and went into cardiac arrest. Dad, Tom, amazingly performed CPR and resuscitated her, awkward if it was a guy, all whilst their young son watched. When baby Sam was born, he unfortunately had to go to the special care unit because mum was very unwell. Initially, he didn't need much intervention. He seemed pretty okay. He was looking around. A few hours later, however, he started to gasp and so show subtle signs of fitting. So he got placed on a ventilator and got transferred to my intensive care unit. When he got to us, his brain activity was severely abnormal. He didn't breathe on the ventilator and didn't respond to any stimulus. Tom himself was overwhelmed. He was leaving his eldest child at home with a friend. He was leaving his wife critically unwell in one hospital, and his newborn baby was in a different intensive care in a different hospital. Can you imagine how overwhelming that must have been for him? When he got to us, he showed me a video of Sam, his eyes open, looking around, and he couldn't understand how we had gotten to this point. When Laura was well enough, she got transferred to us, and she sat at Sam's bedside for the first time since he was born. And she said, it was all for nothing. His life is going to mean nothing. He's 5 days old, and the only people who are ever going to know him are my husband and I, because he's going to die. It was heartbreaking, utterly heartbreaking. I wanted to do whatever I could for this family to make their end-of-life experience better. So we went through the multitude of options of withdrawal of intensive care. We could have done this in the hospital, at home, or in a hospice. We were willing to do whatever we could to make this a positive journey for them. Then out of nowhere, Mum turned around and went, well, could we donate his organs? And it got me thinking, why aren't we offering neonatal organ donation as part of this palliation plan? Why weren't we offering this? So I said, what made you think of this? She said, I'd recently read an article about Teddy, who was an ancephalic baby, who was Britain's youngest organ donor. I said, okay, do you know what? Give me some time. Let me go have a chat. It was late on a Friday afternoon when I went and had this conversation, and I knocked on my consultant's door, and I had this look on my face, and he instantly knew that whatever I was going to ask him was either going to be really complicated or going to make him exceptionally late home on a Friday. I have somewhat of a reputation for it, as well as not being able to use technology. I mean, I'm doing well here with reputations. So we had a conversation. I explained the situation and said, you know, these parents want to consider organ donation. Why don't we? The answer came, no. We've never done it before. Right, okay. But just because we haven't done it before, surely doesn't mean that we can't offer it. If this baby had been born and come into hospital 2 days later and went to paediatric intensive care, wouldn't they be thinking about organ donation? And we're one of the UK's leading transplant centres. He looked at me. You have to realise you are giving these parents an option we may not particularly be able to accommodate. Okay, right. Get my brain ticking. So, why don't we just have a conversation? Why can't I speak to the neonatal organ donation team? It took a lot of time, but I was adamant, and I got the go-ahead to have the conversation. I gave them a call, and they came up. The nurse who came up was utterly terrified. Never in his wildest dreams did he think he would be doing a neonatal organ donation. We went through the multitude of tests that you do have to do, and we actually found that Sam was a suitable donor. We sat down with Laura and Tom and told them, and this overwhelming sense of pain and grief had gone to hope. In their mind, their baby was going to live on in some way. This was amazing for them. We took the time, we had lots of cuddles, we made memories, we gave him his first bath. Then we took Sam to theatre, and he was able to donate some of his tissues, which is amazing. Up until 3 years ago, the Royal Colleges determined that brainstem death testing in neonates was unacceptable, can't be done. That realistically meant that neonatal organ donation had been on hold since 1991. It's insane. Ironically, as a country, we would accept organs from Europe, Canada, US, all from neonates, but wouldn't use our own. It makes no sense. Thankfully, in 2015, new guidance said, actually, do you know what? We can do this. So we can now test for brainstem death in neonates from 37 weeks. This now means it is a realistic option for people to have in their end-of-life pathway, for parents who are going through the worst moment. Sam's legacy not only lives on in his amazing donation, but in the entire culture change that he brought, not only to myself, but to the entire team that I work with. In the neonatal unit that I used to work in the time that I remained there, we were able to offer 2 other families organ donations. We implemented organ donation into our end-of-life care pathway. It changed how we were. We then presented it at a conference, and we've opened this narrative up to further than our own NICU. Reflecting on Sam's story and reflecting on the billionaire story, we need to use what we have, what is most precious to us, to make a difference. If I could let you guys go home with one lesson from today, let it be this. Don't let someone turning around and saying you can't do something be a reason you don't do it. Make a difference, push the boundaries, challenge the status quo. Be the person who knocks on that consultant's door late in the afternoon and be the catalyst for a positive change. Thank you.